Welcome to another Power Plant podcast. I'm sitting in the middle of nowhere, I guess. I'm up in the hills slightly. I'm not that far from my house. In the banana fields. I'll take a photo and I'll set that as my picture for the podcast of exactly my view right now in a sort of very, very sparsely populated village. And I guess there are two topics I wanted to talk about today. The first being with one of my Airbnb guests. He's a French guy, seems like a nice guy. He's lived in Shanghai for 9 years. And if I speak to someone long enough, the topic's going to come on to, eat what you eat and what I eat and what I think about that and stuff like that. So veganism. And he doesn't eat pork because he thinks it's dirty. It's got nothing to do with his religion, I'm pretty sure. I don't think he's religious. And what else? He won't eat red meat because he's acknowledged that he says that's quote-unquote toxic for the body. And he won't have, he tries to avoid antibiotics and things like that. But at the same time, he still eats normal chicken and fish and things like that, where there are lots of antibiotics and chemicals put into the source of the food or into the actual animal themselves to make it, quote-unquote more fit for human consumption, but in the end, probably making it worse. Well, I guess it depends. It's either an acute illness or a longer kind of chronic death. And the second being, what was the second? So I guess the first was talking about that and being able to talk passionately about that, and then being able to step back and realize in the heat of the moment that you don't want to get too into it and let it wreck your day or something like that. So talking about something that you're very passionate about and have a strong opinion about and can express it, and when the other person maybe isn't quote-unquote getting it, as most people don't get it in the moment, it takes a long time to sink in. It's very rare for someone to just flip their views mid-conversation. So you have to be able to step back from that or just sort of build on that throughout the days coming and not let it wreck your own day. And then the next one is totally different. Got a race coming up this Sunday, and it's about sort of tapering and all the spare time you might have and what you want to do with sort of time when you're tapering and extra energy. For me, I love pursuing outdoor activities. So if I'm trying to get into my best shape for a race, in the lead up to that race, I can't be doing too many of that activities. So where else do you put your time and your effort? I guess you could put it into podcasts. You can put it into reading books. And I'm reading George Orwell's 1984 at the moment. And I'm doing more podcasts. So I would tend to think of it as some sort of catch-up time for your brain. So let's get on to the first topic. We were talking about food, what he eats in China, and how he's been leaning towards a more less heavy red meat diet, in that he doesn't eat, I don't know if he eats lamb. I think he does eat lamb, but he doesn't eat a lot of the red meat animals and pork because he thinks it's toxic. And he's correct about that. I'm not sure whether about if it's just quote-unquote toxic rather than it's got a lot of shit in it that's going to cause you chronic disease and illness through maybe inflammation or something, rather than, endotoxins and exotoxins produced from something like an octopus or a spider or some sort of venom. And that's fantastic, and I'm sure he eats less meat than most people, which is great. And you've got to concede people to that, and you've got to give them encouragement if they're on their right path. And then I was like, well, what about like chickens and fish? What's the difference between a fish and a pig and a fish and a human? And he's like, no, well, I mean, obviously humans are at the top, and that just reflecting the whole species, this idea of everyone having, so many people thinking that humans are just the top and therefore they can just eat whatever they choose to because they can and therefore they should. and it's like people's right to. So therefore, a fish or a chicken is lower. And he actively acknowledged that a pig is smart and that it feels pain, and how they're kept in a lot of cages and stuff during their production onto the plate. And cows as well, he acknowledged, are relatively smart. And I was like, well, is it really about smartness, or is it about sort of ability to suffer and just sort of imposing your choice on other animals? And I guess he didn't really have an argument for that, but he still just sort of hid behind and tried to sort of justify the eating of chicken, especially. First of all, chicken is not any healthier. It's not really any leaner than most of the other meats. That's complete bullshit. I think it's got more cholesterol than most of the meats as well. So if you're eating chicken for health reasons, I suggest, even if you think it's organic and whatever, a happy meat, which is can't happen in itself, then I suggest you do more research and the connection of chickens, consumption of chickens, and a lot of chronic diseases. And then I think he holds that sort of same belief with fish and probably a couple of other meats as well. So you can just give people the education, and you just sort of got to let that sink in, and you can be very passionate about it, and you should speak with conviction when you're talking to someone, because if you're talking to someone half-assed, you're not going to get your point across fully, and you're probably not going to sort of activate them and stimulate their own sort of ability to make a change in their own world if you're just sort of half-assing it. So how do you go from the heat of the moment and perhaps, feeling like you're getting angry or something, and then just stepping back and being able to go on to the next topic or something as soon as you decide to switch things? And it's hard. I guess the more you practice it, perhaps the better it comes. And if you're dealing with a particularly open-minded person, it's a lot easier. But, sometimes you just need to take a few breaths, sit back, maybe go to the bathroom. I think that's actually something that I had to go to the bathroom, or I had to put food in the rice cooker, which took, a minute. And then when I stepped back, it was just like, not reset, but reassess. And then onto the topic of, what is it? What's it called? When you stop doing activity trying to improve you? Tapering. So I do 105 kilometers of running on average per week. Check out the Strava, Power Plant Fitness on Strava, OJ, Power Plant Fitness. And I do cycling for commuting. It's less cycling in 2016 than it was in 2015, that's for sure. But it still takes up probably an hour and a half on average each day of both, maybe an hour and 45. So if I'm tapering, especially in the last maybe 4 or 5 days before my scheduled Sunday 10K race, I can't be wasting too much energy. I've done my session this morning, Tuesday, and what I did was I rode my bicycle for about 40 odd minutes before I did my session, because that's what I'm going to be doing on Sunday. That also comes down to sort of specificity and training as you actually play. Because I'm going to have to ride 20 kilometers to the race but in the morning, and then do the race and then ride back. So I'll just ride there, give myself enough time to chillax and probably have food before I leave, and then do the race and then ride back. It's not a problem. I can always ride home feeling a bit, cooked. So now I've just been walking around. I love my hiking, but I can't do all day hikes because that's going to drain energy. I had a pretty big one yesterday, but I've got to just sort of back it off a bit, and it gives you more time for sedentary activities, or activities that aren't going to hinder your performance. So reading could be one. I haven't read enough books of late, but that's changing. The habit has already started. It's already been a few days where I've read every day in a row, I think 4. It only has to be a certain amount of time, maybe 15, 10, half an hour. But as soon as you start building it, you know that you can sort of feel it becoming a pattern in yourself, a habit. It's a good habit, reading, so why not? And then you've got more time for other stuff as well, like, I don't know, if you want to catch up with friends, do some sightseeing. For me, I like travelling by bike because it's a time-saving thing. When I say time, I mean money-saving thing. And it's fun, and it gets me going, but I can't be using all that energy. So this week might just be a very chilled week, where most people would consider it boring, but really boredom is just sort of like a lack of attention or not being interested enough in anything you're doing. So you can be bored in any situation and you can be entertained in any situation. It's sort of like you can be happy in any situation. It's just the way you choose to think about it and how you engage it. So people do meditation retreats where they're just sitting down for hours, or they're in isolation, and they're paying money for that. They're choosing to do that. They're not bored. But if you were just sitting at home on the couch, perhaps you might feel bored if you're in the wrong mindset. I can definitely, perhaps not much as other people, but when you're a younger kid, you just sit down during the summer holidays or something, and you're like, what can I do? But I generally am very good at occupying myself now with something, even if it's just a walk outside, which is enough for me. So those are the 2 topics that I just wanted to discuss today, and it is Tuesday, I guess it's the 21st, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I've been invited to a Christmas party on the day, but I've got the race in the morning, so that's not a problem. I think it would be a lunch. It was a lunch, and it was, they would expect me to put in $100 for all the food and stuff, which involves some sort of chicken or some sort of dead animal on a spit or something. So I'm not going to go to that. At least I'm not going to eat that food there. It is at my apartment complex, so I can choose to go and just say hello to everyone, which might be an easier option after the race. And then I've got something that I am going to on Christmas Eve. It's just like the triathlon group that trains down at the track that I'm at. I know a couple of them, so someone's got something at their house, a little party, I guess. And that's what's news for me in Hong Kong this week. Let me know if you like it, give it a like. If you like it, share it with your friends. Catch you next time.